Hello, nerds for Yang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Now with this campaign, bang, dang, it's and Drew, come roll with the Yang Gang.
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Hello, nerds!
Oh, I love it. Welcome to the show, David Kim and Jen Perelman. So excited to have you. There's a very good chance. Oh, there's Donna. Donna just joined the show. Hold on.
Woo-hoo.
Donna, we just got you in time. Can you give us a hello, nerds?
Yes, hi, how's it going? Nerds.
All right, we'll take that. We'll take that. Oh, Blair's in the house. There we go. We're all getting everybody just in the nick of time. Blair, if you want to unmute and activate that mic, we will be good to go. But before we get into that, in case I know Blair sometimes is in Tennessee, where sadly the internet connectivity is not what it always could be. But let's get started with some quick introductions. Maybe we could go David, Jen, Donna, and then Blair. For those in the audience who are not familiar with each of you, can you just tell us like who you are, where you're from, and we'll just start there, and then of course I'll ask some follow-up questions, and we'll have our conversation.
Great, awesome. Yes, thank you so much for having me, Tom and Nerds for Yang. My name is David Kim. I am running for U.S. Congress in California's 34th Congressional District, which covers downtown LA, Koreatown, and other major surrounding neighborhoods, and I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, David. Jen?
Hi, I'm Jen Perelman. I'm running for Congress in Florida's 23rd District, which is South Broward and a little bit of North Miami-Dade down the beach. And I'm challenging Debbie Wasserman Schultz in the primary. And I feel I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome, Jen. Donna?
Hi, everybody. My name is Donna Imam, and I'm running for U.S. Congress in Texas's 31st District. This is northwest of Austin suburbs, goes all the way up to Killeen, which has the largest armored vehicle military base in the entire country. And this race is one of the 6 targeted races, red to blue in Texas. It's so close to flipping blue, just 8,000 votes for 2.9%.
Right on. And Blair will be coming back once the internet improves for her. Blair is running for the 1st district in the great state of Tennessee, and she is ex-Air Force. And we'll hear more about her in a little bit. But before we go to Blair, let's just start with, can you share a little bit about how your campaigns are going? And I would love to hear what's going well, and also like where are things, where are you needing to spend more time, or where are you needing to connect more with your constituents? And you're needing to put a little bit more work as well. So I'm sure it's not all perfect. So if you could share both the good and the needs improvement, be great to hear it. David, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for asking. When was the last time that I was on here, Tom?
Oh, I think it was like a few months ago. Must have been like 3 months ago. Yeah.
Okay, so it was right after our primary win, probably.
Yes.
In regards to placing second. So for those of you who don't know, California, we have a top 2 choice, a top 2 system where we don't have our own Democratic primaries or Republican primaries. It's a jungle race. So whoever just makes top 2 advances to the general. And so fortunately with that more Democratic setup, we were able to clinch a strong 2nd place, and we advanced to the November general. And it's definitely been, it's already June. It's been about 3 months since the primary election passed here in California. And we've been doing a lot of structural adjusting, because we used to be a team of 3 to 4 or 5 people during the primary cycle. And then suddenly after winning the primary election, we became a team of 20 to 30 now. So just trying to adjust that structural change, trying to be more efficient, really being very strategic, because although the air wars is what I like to say, and what some donors have taught me, air wars being fundraising, air wars being social media awareness, recognition, publicity, although those are very important because they help to fund our get out the vote efforts, they help to fund our ground game efforts. At the end of the day, ground game is greater than air wars. And so we do want to be very strategic. We're playing where we're not playing a game, we're actually fighting a fight for the people in times where people are financially distressed right now, where they're hurting, where pre-COVID-19 they had 2 to 3 jobs to make ends meet, and now they have no jobs to make ends meet. And so we're in very crucial, urgent times, and so we need to be very strategic as well, to be mindful that when we're asking for donations, when we're asking for support, that we are also being very effective and efficient campaigns as well. So we're working with our data, we're working with our campaign, and strategically targeting different groups in our district and letting them know, because I think at this point, it's not that our voters are completely shut out and not in the know about what's going on, but they just need to be educated and informed of what the difference is between voting for a liberal, centrist, corporately funded establishment Democrat is, as opposed to voting for 100% people-powered grassroots candidate. And so it's those kinds of things that we're now really learning and buckling down on as we enter our general election race. And I'm so excited for Donna and Jen, like you're entering your different parts of the race with the primary, but for us now we're really getting focused, laser focused, and planning that all out. So right now, Tom, we're like really busy focusing and concentrating on the outreach efforts right now. So we've grown a lot since last being here, and I'd love to talk with Donna and Jen in the future as to how we can continue to build that, because here's a sneak preview, the California down ballot progressive candidates will be doing something. So stay on the lookout and watch out. So thank you for having me, Tom.
David, did you get a new laptop? Last time we talked, you were on that, like, I don't know, 2001 laptop or something.
No, but we did improve our connections and capabilities with some campaign funding. So thank you for asking. And this month is actually our highest fundraising month, and we're continuing to grow. So it's good. Thank you.
Excellent. Jen, did you say you're running against, did you say Debbie Wasserman Schultz?
Yes, I am primarying Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We have, unfortunately, a closed primary down here. So we need everybody to be registered as Democrats by July 18th in order to vote for me in the August 18th primary. And that's one of the ways that she has been able to sit there for so long, is it's so hard to unseat somebody in a very gerrymandered district where the only way you can do it is in a primary, and we have closed primaries. So it's really, our efforts are much more getting people to understand that they have to be registered as Democrat and get out the vote, more so than really have to convince people, because for the most part in this district, the people that support Debbie, they just support her because they support her. They just do. They're not going to. And then there's the people that are sort of where they voted for her, they're comfortable with her, but they're not, they're not possessive or protective of her. And those people, we've pulled some. But more importantly, we are pulling in from a whole new source of people than usually even participate in our district. So I do a lot of service work. Our campaign has been a service campaign pretty much as soon as we started having volunteers coming on board. So I'd say 10 months or so, we've been running a service campaign long before COVID. We definitely have taken a little bit of a hit in terms of not being able to be really canvassing door to door. So what we're doing is we're doing door hangers. We're doing a lot of phone banking. We need so many volunteers. We're building up, but we really need a lot of people on the phones. And, we're still doing things in terms of service. I'm still doing Feeding South Florida. We're still making sure to do distributions when we can help. We're giving out sanitizers and masks. So, we are also doing small business canvassing, where I'm going around to basically, I'm trying every small business in the district and promoting them and trying to give them a platform during COVID. And so we've been out serving in that way as well. But yeah, no, we need volunteers, and yeah, we need money.
Yeah, that's sadly, that is what makes politics at least start turning the wheels with the way until we get the democracy dollars. But well, congrats on going after a lot of people will probably be intimidated by going after such a big brand in the Democratic Party. Jen, what's your message to folks who say like, hey, if we have a congressperson who is so well known, she's going to have influence with other members of the Democratic caucus and might be able to advocate more strongly for local interests and have, kind of relationships in the Rolodex to kind of influence things in the interest of the district. What do you say to those folks?
It's funny, I get that question a lot. If you're coming in as a freshman congressperson, you're sort of taking away a seat from somebody who is in an authority position. And every time I've been asked that, I always say, okay, well, can you show me what she's done, how she's used that position to better the community? Can you show me an example of this? Nobody's ever shown me anything. So I don't know if that's that they really don't know, or if there really is nothing. I don't know. I know that that's a talking point that people use, but I don't see her going around and promoting small businesses. I don't see her, out there really walking the walk. And what she does is she relies heavily on how she first campaigned for Florida State House. And when she did canvass then, that was like 25 plus years ago. So, but I don't see what she's doing in the community. I really don't, except for a very, very small niche of people that all have their basic needs met. And when you have all your basic needs met, it's very easy to think that everything is fine. So she targets a very specific market. During COVID, her webinars have been on childhood drowning, internet predators, and scam artists. And I'm trying to figure out how to help people deal with the unemployment conundrum and get food. So she is targeting a very specific audience of people that they have computers and they have pools. And so their concerns are things like that. And I just think a lot of our population is ignored by her.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing that up. I guess a lot of people just assume if it's a super well-known name, like they must be doing something good. But I think it makes a great amount of sense to say, well, point to it. What happened in the district because of this, this leadership?
Nobody ever says anything. But I'll tell you, the real point is about her is how corporate she is, and the types of places she takes her money from. It's just, she's been my congresswoman for 16 years. I've been watching her take money from fossil fuels, private prisons, big sugar, everything that is nefarious and against everything I stand for. And she doesn't ever intend on stopping taking that money. So it's blatant. She's not working for regular people. That's really what it's about. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing a little bit more about that, and we'll definitely get into your district more in a little bit. Donna, tell us how your campaign's going. Like, what's working? Where do you want to put more time and effort in? Where are you finding some wins, and where do you want to improve?
So our campaign started with 12 people in the race, and then on March 3rd, Super Tuesday, Texas had its primary. And our primary is along with the presidential primary. And in Texas, if you don't get 50% of the vote, the top two candidates go into a runoff election. So we are right in the middle of our early voting starting tomorrow for this runoff election. That's where we are. There were 6 people on the ballot in the primary, 5 people running, and our campaign advanced to this runoff election. And the most interesting thing about our district is that we have 2 counties, Williamson County and Bell County. And in 2018, Williamson County went blue, and Bell County is where the work needs to be done. And we need to close a gap, a tiny gap of 2.9%, just 8,000 votes. And on March 3rd, our campaign won Bell County. So we are going into this runoff in a very strong position. If we win this runoff, we are in the strongest position to flip this district. And really, our campaign has been able to do that by reaching out to the majority Black Americans, Asian Americans, Latino and Hispanic Americans that make up the majority of the population in Bell County. So that's what this race is all about. And it's really interesting to see David and Jen talk about economic issues, because in our district, Williamson County is considered affluent. We have a lot of major tech companies up here like Dell Technologies, Amazon, Google, and Apple. Yet for every single person who has a high wage, 6-figure job, there are 3 people that are struggling to put food on the table, that have no health insurance or no health coverage, are unable to go see a doctor. They're unable to pay their mortgage. They live in constant economic anxiety. And when you go to Bell County, it's primarily a veterans and service member community, because as I mentioned, we have the largest armored vehicle military base up there. So unless you are part of the military in a high ranking position there, your income opportunities are less than $10 an hour service jobs. And a lot of these people in Bell County drive 1 hour or longer one way to get a job in Austin, Texas, because it's neighboring Austin. Yet they completely are unable to live in Austin because they cannot afford to live here. So they have to commute over 2 hours daily just to be able to make a living. So this is what our campaign is all about. We are endorsed by every single labor union, including statewide Texas AFL-CIO, which takes 2/3 of the vote in order to get that endorsement, representing hundreds of thousand union members. We are the campaign of people who work for a living and working class Americans. And our biggest challenge right now is getting our message to the voter. So what we could really use help with is phone banking. If you are able to make 20 calls today, tomorrow through July 14th, which is the election day for our runoff, we would love to have your support. Just reach out to us at contact@votefordonna.com with your email address and your mobile number, and we will get you in touch, put you in one of our phone banks, and all we need to do is get our message out. And I'll tell you why. Every time we put our message in front of the voter, we win. People say, this makes complete sense to us. What you are standing for, what you're trying to do is what we need in this district. So we just need to get our message out to voters, and that's where we could use your help. And as I mentioned, early voting starts tomorrow, so this is crunch time for our campaign.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you, Donna. It's a very exciting next 24 hours for you. And I also know that you may have to jump in about 10, 15 minutes from this call. So let me ask you the next question. Tell us a little bit, and I'll ask the same to David and Jen. For those who don't know your bios, could you share a little bit about your background, your life's kind of perspective and your experiences, and what you think you're going to bring to the Congress that kind of represents a unique perspective that only you have, that maybe other folks in your race don't bring?
Yeah, so I'm an electrical and computer engineer, and I have an 18-year career in technology. But about 6 years ago, I joined a nonprofit. We built it up to a 4,000 plus member nonprofit. We raised tens of thousands of dollars for it. And this nonprofit provides free training and education for anybody who wants it. And it was during this time that I came to the realization, when I watched, working Texans firsthand struggle to survive and just meet their basic needs, I realized that we need to do more, and we have major systemic challenges in our country that need to be solved. And as an engineer, I have worked on products that are used by millions of people around the world. Microcontrollers that I've worked on are found in everything from a washing machine to a jet airplane. One of the things that I'm uniquely trained to do is to scale large systems that work for every single person. So I'll give you an example. For example, when we started getting cellular phones in people's hands, initially we had some people who had phones, and then soon after that, almost every single person in the United States, all 327 million people, have a mobile phone. Some people have 2. And on a day-to-day basis, everyone is able to have conversations successfully. And the reason we're able to do that is we have scaled the infrastructure needed to be able to do that in a comfortable way, where 90% of the time, doesn't matter where you are, you're going to be able to have a conversation, whether it's domestic or even international. And this is a unique perspective that can be applied to our healthcare system specifically. So one of the things that I talk about is I'm a huge advocate for single payer healthcare for all, or Medicare for all, but I point out that unless we scale our healthcare infrastructure, just Medicare for all or Medicare for all alone is not going to be able to bring high quality healthcare coverage to the 80 million plus people who do not have the ability to go see a doctor, whether they have insurance or not. And let me explain to you why. Our country has a huge lack of primary care physicians, nurses, and doctors, and facilities to take care of people at the preventative level, meaning when you get sick, you're able to go see a doctor. So we use ER as our first line of defense. And unless we lower the cost of healthcare for every single person in this country, no way, there's going to be no solution for healthcare. It doesn't matter how you want to solve it. We have to lower the cost of healthcare first. And the way we do that is we increase the number of primary care physicians and facilities that you can go to, so people have constant healthcare coverage and they are not letting their healthcare challenges progress into a point where they have to be hospitalized all the time. And this has been brought to the surface in a very stark way because of COVID-19. We now see, for example, we saw this in New York City where there wasn't enough hospital capacity and they had to put up tents in Central Park. And over the last 7 days, we are now seeing this in Texas. For example, in Houston, the hospitals are now at capacity. They do not have enough capacity to put in people who need to be hospitalized for the coronavirus. So scaling the healthcare infrastructure applies here as well in terms of having enough PPE, having enough ventilators, having enough hospital beds, and planning for that. It also applies to testing, for example. If we had ramped up testing at a very successful rate early on in March and April when we were observing a shutdown, and we were doing this to essential workers repeatedly, we could have killed this coronavirus much, much quicker. So it applies to testing, it applies to contact tracing, being able to know who was where, when. And finally, it applies to the fact that we need to be able to actually accommodate the challenges that we have in our healthcare system by ensuring that people have enough PPE early on. So in March, when doctors were trying to handle all these cases in New York City specifically, they were having challenges getting hold of PPE. And when they opened up boxes of PPE, they found many of it with mold in it because nobody was paying attention to the first in, first out and a way of looking at inventory. So these are the things that I mean by scaling the healthcare infrastructure. And as an engineer, I am uniquely not disqualified to solve these challenges, but I've led a $37 billion product line. I have a huge breadth in financials and how to reduce the cost of products and services. And I think these would be very unique to our Congress. And the last thing I will say is this: look at who is doing contact tracing. It's the tech companies. And Congress needs to understand, and when Google and Apple and these kind of companies are involved with our private information, that the privacy of American citizens is extremely important. And this is where an engineer can have this in-depth conversation with tech companies and hold them accountable, knowing what are the underlying factors in keeping Americans' information private and secure. So that's kind of a little bit about my background and how it could apply to Congress.
Thank you so much, Donna. And I hope we can get you back on the show in the future. And if you have to jump now, feel free. If you can stay around a little longer, you're welcome to stay as long as you like.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on. As you know, I'm also trying to call voters myself, and every single second counts. So thank you for having me. And I hope to join you if we win this runoff. And hopefully we will win this runoff, and I'll be back with you guys.
Sounds good. Donna, we'll have to get you an early goodbye nerds from you. Can you give us a bye nerds?
Bye nerds.
Love it. Love it. All right, David, you were a lawyer in the past, but tell us in your words, what's your background?
Yes, I wanted to correct. I had said nerds for yang, nerds for humanity. That's an important thing.
We may have to switch back in 2024, but yeah, for now we're nerds for humanity.
Got it. Understood. Yes. So for those who don't know, I am an attorney. Currently, I am an immigration attorney. I defend respondents in immigration court when they receive a notice to appear, and I request for their extended stay in the States or for their permanent residence. Because a lot of them are being deported to countries that they fled from because they were facing death and hunger every day, and the risk of being killed and murdered by actual people and that they knew in their neighborhoods. And so that's what I'm currently doing right now. And it wasn't up until recently though that actually, let me rewind a little bit. So I graduated in 2010 from law school. And at the time I graduated, the legal market was really bad. The job market was bad. And for lawyers, it wasn't anything, it wasn't anything better. We had no job market. And so I ended up working 2 to 3 jobs to make ends meet. I worked multiple part-time and full-time attorney jobs for free. And after finishing and working as a full-time attorney, I would then drive for Uber and Lyft from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. every day, sleep for 3 hours, and then go back to work to being an attorney, because paid attorney jobs were scarcity back then. There were big law firms closing down. You really had to either just take in your 200,000 in law school loans, change professions, and just count it as a loss, or you had to stick it through and work and hustle and do 2 and 3 jobs for free to build up your resume and career. And so that's what I did for 8-9 years of my life. And it came to a point where I realized, shit, life shouldn't be this hard. Like, I have a very good education. I'm very, very fortunate, but yet life is super hard. But forget about me, what about other people? And that's when my eyes started opening and realizing, holy shit, like, life isn't all hunky-dory as it seems to be and what the media paints it to be, or what our politicians do with sending out their mailers saying, re-elect me, and I've done this and this for our communities are safe and life is good. But they're really painting a false picture for all of us and brainwashing us to think that everything is okay when it's not. So for a district like ours, and my eyes actually started opening in 2018, more recently, as I was hustling and bustling, going through the daily grind of life, trying to make my own ends meet. And so I didn't have the time to be civically engaged and politically engaged and to know what was important or what was not important or who to vote for. But it wasn't until 2018, I missed the whole 2016 Bernie revolution period, unfortunately. But 2018, I met a young guy named Kenneth Mejia. He was running for U.S. Congress in our district for the same position that I'm currently running for. And he ran as a Green Party member. And I received a text message from one of his text banking campaigns. And it said, we are fighting to for Medicare for all, for affordable housing, for abolishing ICE, for this, this, and this, for the Green New Deal. And it was just, something hit me, and I went to his website, read about who he was, what he was fighting for, his history, his campaign, and it was like, yes, these are the type of people that we need to be electing into office, the people who really care, the people who are already doing the work in our communities, on doing the groundwork every day. And so I ended up helping out Kenneth on his campaign, ended up being one of his core campaign team members. He asked me to switch to Green Party registration. I even did that because to me, party doesn't really mean much because, as you can see, our 2-party system is corrupt anyway. And so for me, that wasn't a problem because I really believed in Kenneth, his vision, and the campaign that he was fighting for. And unfortunately, he ended up not winning. But he did perform really well. There are less than 1% registered as Green Party members in our district, yet he managed to win a total 28% of the general vote last general election. And that shows you that a third of our voters, a majority of them being Democrat, chose to vote for another party candidate because they didn't trust their own candidate, because nothing is happening in our district. We have parts of our district having per capita incomes of $12,000 to $15,000, with the average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in those same areas being $2,000 a month. How in the world do people live? And they can't. That's why we have a couple and few families living in 1-bedroom apartments together. That's why we have masses of people working multiple jobs to make ends meet. That's why people continue to purchase more debt to live. And when our people continue to wake up every morning with this daily deep-rooted anxiety and fear and chronic economic just paralysis about what to do or how to pay rent, what are we doing for our people? Why are you giving lip service to our people? That's bullshit. Those are lies. And so our campaign is really fighting for the financial freedom, love, and justice for all people. And so financial freedom looks like talking about student debt, talking about the 35-plus-year wage stagnation that we're in, the ever-increasing widening wealth gap. It means talking about all of these different things that we could actually be helping our people, providing a universal basic income. And that's something that I saw that was lacking amongst a lot of campaigns and the congressional candidates that were running in our district. And fortunately, I had the great privilege of running alongside amazing primary challengers. But eventually, I think that people voted, and we ended up cleaning that strong second. But our campaign is where I think our campaign is finally making that stance and saying enough is enough. We as the people need to step up, take our power back, because no one else can take our power unless we let them. And so now is the time to educate the people about what's going on, about how much lip service is being done. Why hasn't Medicare for All passed? Because your congressman accepts money from Big Pharma. Why hasn't there been free public college? Because your congressman accepts money from student debt collectors. Why hasn't there been big change and reform in police? Why isn't he even standing for defunding the police? Because police union PACs and private prison PACs donate to your congressman, and yet he has the boldness to stand at police protests and say that he's fighting for the people. And it's our time and our opportunity to wake up as the people and realize, oh shit, like our elected officials are blatantly lying to us in our faces, and we haven't caught on to that yet. And so I think what Jen's campaign is about, what my campaign is about, what Donna's campaign is about exposing that and saying, hey guys, like, you're not really doing a good thing by re-electing the same people, because that's where we continue to go downward. And so our campaign is really about making big, bold changes, passing a homes guarantee, passing universal basic income, Medicare for all, a Green New Deal. So yeah, thank you for letting me share that, Tom.
Right on, brother. Woo! I feel the energy. I feel it through the screen, David. Now, Jen, you are also an attorney, from what I read, and you bring your own perspective. You're also a parent, and you've been working on important issues, for the community for some time. But tell for the audience, tell us a little bit more about your background and why you decided to run.
Okay, so first, I'm a little bit older. Is there any way to keep it so we're all three on the screen when I'm talking, or does it have? Can we do that?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, it's so much better when I can see people when I'm talking.
Oh,
So
go for it.
I'm a little older, maybe a lot older than David. So I graduated from law school a lot before that, and my background before that actually is in journalism and marketing. So I really went to school to be a journalist. I was going to be the next Woodward and Bernstein. That was my calling. I was going to do that. And I ended up getting sucked into advertising, which is an extremely whorish kind of industry where it's like you don't even have your own soul. You're literally just selling somebody else's stuff, right? So I did that for a while. And then I went and got a master's degree in marketing communications, and I started doing more relations and media relations management. And I was doing media relations for the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. And I was basically the media liaison between their lobbying team and the media. And I would be holding regular press conferences across the street at the State House, at the governor's office, and just really getting involved in the policy aspect of, just how the legislation works. And I really liked it a lot. And I thought, I'd like to do this, but I want to do it for a nonprofit. Like I pictured doing it for, like the Innocence Project or something like that. And so I really went to law school in order to lobby and be on the sort of policy legislative side of things. When I graduated, I was nowhere near a state capital and have moved to South Florida, where I'm still nowhere near a state capital, and had 2 little kids, and I was in no position to be gone so much of the year. So I ended up just doing some other types of law, but really my real interest was direct out of law school was I was doing criminal defense. And so a huge part for me when we talk about things like justice, really criminal justice, this whole analysis now of police brutality. And I'm so thankful that more people are catching on to this, because this has been something that I've been talking about since, I don't know, before law school. So criminal justice the system is biased and white supremacist at every single level of the system. It isn't just in policing. Policing is just where we tend to see it the most. That's the most visible form that we see, because it's physical and it's in your face. But from arrest all the way to being a returning citizen with a felony conviction, the way that our system operates is one based on racism and white supremacy. It is also sickening that it is a for-profit system. And that, to me, is one of the key things about our criminal justice system among healthcare and public education, is we have to remove the profit motive from those industries. I am not a socialist. I'm a capitalist. I have no problem with people making money, but there are certain essential societal functions that need to be taken off the for-profit market, because we just can't have that. And we see it in healthcare. And what happens is small, group of people take the money and siphon it out of our public system, whether it's to charter schools, whether it's to insurance companies, whether it's to prison companies, contractors, whatever. And it keeps us in this horrible loop. And yeah, the problem is all of those people have paid for our congressional representatives to essentially be on their payrolls. And so when David's talking about a representative going to a Black Lives Matter march, but yet they take the second large amount of money from police PACs of any Democrat in the House. That's my congresswoman. And yes, it's infuriating to watch her go to talk about justice and police brutality when she is on the payroll of the Fraternal Order of Police. It is infuriating to watch her talk about things that having to do with labor. And she actually gets the labor endorsement. And she gets it not because she's better on labor, but because of politics and connections and cronyism. And so she will sit there and talk about helping labor, but she doesn't support Medicare for all. She doesn't support a universal basic income. She doesn't even support a $15 minimum wage. So the fact that is who is representing labor, I just want to say, when we talk about third parties, I think it's important to recognize that right now we don't even have two, because we have no labor party in this country, and we haven't had a labor party in this country since probably the 80s. And that is what is wrong with this country. And that is why it has gotten where it is, because we don't have two. We have two corporate wings of the same bird, and it is not getting us anywhere. So, I would just say, before we even have to worry about a third party, we should consider a second. So that's, we're about labor, we're about justice, we're about, the least among us. And I just think that we need to all understand the importance of the collective, because we truly can only be as great as we treat the most oppressed people among us. We really can't. So I'm not proud to be an American right now. There is nothing remotely to take pride in right now. I don't understand how anybody could be defending how we treat people in this country across the board. So, that's what my campaign is about. It is about fighting for those people that have been ignored since the corporations bought our government.
So, Jen, you're making some pretty strong arguments there. Now, some people listening might be saying, whoa, I thought the Democrats were the good guys. And you're suggesting that, both parties are maybe more similar than different, which is not the narrative we often hear when we read news articles and things like that.
Depends on where you're getting your news.
True. Fair enough. How do you suggest we change that, let's say, for the Democratic Party, and make it more about the working person and the laborer who isn't, driving around in a Tesla and going to a fundraiser?
That is the same person, and both parties, elites and the tops, and this is any group, any organization, whether it's any minority organization, LGBTQ, the elites at the top of the organization will inevitably work to serve themselves at the expense of the people that are in their organization, whether it's a labor union, whatever it is, whether it's a political party. And that's essentially what the Dems are doing. They've done it since they sold their soul. I would say, well, really, Reagan and the air traffic controllers was sort of a death blow to unions. But Bill Clinton started selling off our government for parts between the Communications Act. Everything, NAFTA. He basically sold us all out. And so, this is something that's been happening gradually. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the Democratic Party haven't noticed it because it's been so gradual. The same people that were watching Rachel Maddow in the 90s are still watching her, but it's no longer the same content. It is now corporate propaganda, but it's happened gradually. And I have no problem calling them out. I am a Democrat. I joined when they were the party of labor, the environment, and anti-war. And so, you know, I'm still the same person. They moved to the right and they got bought by corporations. So I am actually what is supposed to be a Democrat. And when they say that, oh, I'm so far left or I'm the radical, I reject that. I don't even like being called progressive. I mean, in the literal definition, yes, I'd like to see progress happening. I think but why doesn't everybody want that? So, you know, that I'm tired of their labels. I am tired of their silly color war. It's a political circus, and all they're doing is funneling money to their rich friends, and that's both parties. And I feel like somebody needs to be the grown-up in the room with these people.
Yes.
All right. Well, David, let me get your thoughts on that. I mean, you were challenging some of you're making the point that, hey, look in your own district, look at where your congressperson is getting money. What would you do to A, do you agree with Jen's assessment, and B, to the extent that you do, what do you think you in Congress can do to change and make that Democratic Party more representative of all people's interests?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with Jen all the way with everything she said, because we actually don't have a two-party system. We have the illustration that she used, the same bird, just two different wings. Yes, that's currently happening in front of our eyes, and we just haven't noticed that or put our finger on that to identify that. And the more that we do share about it, the more we will realize and be aware. Before going on to that, I think what really drives Jen in her campaign and what she's done, although I just met her right now, and what drives me and the other candidates that are running for Congress right now is the fact that we see injustices everywhere, in every single area and part of our lives. And for us to see that and to just close our eyes, like, that's not being human at all. You have no human soul. You have no emotions. You're not able to connect if you're not able to see that. And that's what's happened with our elected officials. They're basically dead corporate puppets, people just putting in their votes according to what their party leadership tells them at the top, and never reading any of the 1,800 pages like they're supposed to, or whatever pages that they are. And when constituents are asking them on their town halls of just very basic elements of what was passed, they have to take some time to really remember the very basic elements, to look things up. And so when you just look at all of that, it's like, do you guys even read what you vote on and pass? No. Like, if you were working for a business, if you were working for a company, you would have been fired in the first 90 days immediately, because you don't do your job. You can't do your job. Like, who would ever vote on a bill without reading every single page? And that's what's going on right now, firstly. And the second thing is that they're independently legislating without having any input, feedback, or dialogue with their communities. And that's a thing that definitely needs to be changed, because when you're an elected official, you should be representing the will of the people and be co-governing with the people, knowing what their needs and concerns are, instead of legislating as off in the air, on your own, aimlessly, because you're not connected to your community or constituency at all. And so what drove me in my legal career was, I had a lot of friends. Just to give you a snippet of my legal career, I had a lot of friends who were being taken advantage of in the entertainment industry, artists, singer-songwriter friends, writers, people who took out loans to try to fulfill and pursue their dreams. And they're then paying $10,000, $15,000 retainers to lawyers who are charging them an arm and a leg, and taking advantage of them and exploiting them. And I saw that, and I'm thinking, why are you asking me for free help when you already paid your attorney $15,000? And so that's what drove me to go into that industry, to revolutionize the legal industry there, to create more flat fee legal services for creatives. And so I founded the HollywoodLawyer.com in October 2014 for creatives who couldn't afford attorneys and who were being ripped off. And after we started doing that, we saw other legal practices adapting to our model, like Council for Creators and these other law practices in the area. And so after a moment, I thought, okay, I've reached my, I guess, my sphere of influence in creating change in the way that I could within this legal landscape for the entertainment industry. What other injustices are there? And it was that moment when I was campaigning for Kenneth and all of that, I realized, holy shit, injustice is everywhere. This is too massive. It's too big. And for a moment, and that's where I really got into local organizing, going to protest, really learning what it meant to be an activist during the past 2-3 years, and really being engaged and realizing, wow, our leaders are completely incompetent, but we keep on re-electing them over and over again, and this has to stop. And so what drove me to run is because we don't have time. We can't afford another 2 years for our communities to continue suffer. We're the 10th poorest congressional district now. Who's to say that in 2 years we'll be the first, the poorest one in the nation? And so it's very urgent that we do act now. And so once we enter Congress, candidate and Congress elected officials like Jen and like myself, we're not afraid to take big, bold action, to stand up against party leadership, to really vote and consult with our constituencies first, because that's what representation looks like. That's what a representative form of government looks like. So for us to be completely 100% people powered, that's a start, because we don't have to pledge allegiance or our interests or loyalty to anybody except the people who voted for us and who are supporting us. And so for us to be able to go there with no strings attached, we're completely like, they better watch out. If once Jen makes it, once I make it, they have to watch out, because we're not going to be quiet at all, because we've been quiet for 35 plus years, and we can't continue to be quiet, or else we'll just continue to face towards destruction. And so it comes about us being bold, us being very outspoken about the issues that are prone to our communities, and then the last and most important thing, co-governing with our people in every single way. And so that's why we've earned the support and endorsements of local grassroots organization groups over our opponent in all respects.
All right. Well, I want to get on to two topics that have been that might be a little bit controversial. Should I go there? Yeah. Okay. Let's do it. So the first one is not that controversial, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you differ from Andrew Yang. Obviously, he endorsed both your campaigns, and Humanity Forward is supporting both your candidacies. But, you know, we're a diverse country. Everybody has different views. Maybe we'll start with you, Jen. Like, where do you feel like you have the biggest alignment with the kind of Yang platform that many of us are familiar with? And where do you just have a slightly different take on things versus what he was going for?
You know, the two main issues that we had in common, I think, that was the crossovers, that I do support UBI. I supported UBI before COVID, and non-means tested UBI, more importantly. So, I mean, that's something that we had in common. And also his protection of privacy rights and your personal information is something that's really important to me as well. So to be honest, I really don't know that there are that many things that we're so completely different on. I really don't know. I just know that those were the two major issues where we kind of really crossed over. And I think just in general, and from when I spoke with Andrew on the phone, it's amazing what reasonable people and what you can actually accomplish, whether you agree on things or disagree on policies. When people are reasonable and are not compromised, it's amazing what you can accomplish. So I just think that he is somebody, and from the beginning of the race, I was always a Bernie supporter. And really, Andrew and Tulsi were the only other two people that I would have voted for with that nomination. Like, those are the only other two people that I trusted that were running. And so I really don't think there are that many things that, I'm sure there's a lot of very policy specific thing, hence Nerds for Humanity, and, probably a lot of very wonky stuff that I probably should know by detail, but don't, fortunately. But I do know that he is a big supporter of environmental issues, which is also very important to me. I just found him to be very smart and reasonable, to be honest with you. And I just feel like I can work with people like that. And I just see that as somebody who has a vision and wants to just move it forward. So I don't know all the details, and that's of a lot of his things, but I just find him to be extremely smart, reasonable, and visionary. And so I trust that a lot of the stuff that he's put out has been extremely well thought through. And I have no reason to think otherwise. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there would be little points of contention in different things regarding economics or regarding business thing. I'm sure there would be, but I just think he's so reasonable. I just, I think we could all just sort of work together to get stuff done.
Right on. Let me ask a follow-up question from Nell. Nell saying, hey, he's suggesting that your website.
I'm sorry, I'm having a dog situation.
No worries.
Okay.
Good luck.
Okay, so is it the question I'm seeing on the screen?
Correct.
Okay, if I believe in a why does my website use concept of UBI? You know what? I would. It's just, quite honestly, my website is a work in progress, and there's definitely certain things on there. There's nothing. I know that people are so used to saying things that they consider to be weasel words so that you're not committing to something or whatever. I assure you on my website, it's just we're learning as we're going and really trying to understand what the most specific policies are and the best way to address it. But I absolutely support non-means tested UBI. And I would actually support an additional UBI during a pandemic. So I understand it doesn't say that right now. We're very small grassroots. We don't even have a full-time web person. So we're doing the best we can to update as we go. But nothing is weaselly worded. It's just, it's literally their oversights, or it was written before we knew more details. That's it.
Got it. Great. And I see Blair has joined
Oh,
from the great state
wow.
of Tennessee.
I would say better late than never, but I'm really, really late.
No worries. Hey, your internet connection is so much better than last time, Blair. I'm super excited. We're gonna get to you in a second. I wanted to just wrap up this segment with David about where are you most aligned with old Andrew Yang, and David, where do you have a difference of opinion with him?
Yeah, just like I've just all fond memories just come up when I think of Andrew. Andrew has definitely been an inspiration and an empowerment and voice to many during the past year, 2 years, just like Bernie Sanders, Marianne Williamson, Tulsi Gabbard, as those individuals have been as well. And what I love about Andrew is that he puts data and humanity before anything and everything else. And he uses those as the basis for his policy, his decision making, his thought processes, where for other candidates and elected officials, it's their own prejudices, their biases, their own experiences, which are very important that you use to supplement what you know, but those shouldn't be your leading factors when you should actually be grounded in reality, knowing what's actually going on around you, looking at the data, looking at the math, and seeing where our people are hurting and where they could actually be receiving tangible, direct relief and help. And that's what that's how Andrew is different from a lot of other candidates. He's able to put a finger on it and identify it and bring up very helpful real solutions, whether it be universal basic income or having a humanity-centered capitalism, which we call in our campaign humanity-centered economy, where our economy and the health and well-being of our country isn't based on a GDP, but whether or not millions of our people are employed, whether or not they have health insurance, whether or not they are happy. And so that's what I love about Andrew. I think the differences that we might have are just policy issues with regards to how to implement and go about towards that same and common goal, whether it be having single payer, Medicare for all, or universal health care, and those differences in policy issues. But I don't think those are big enough for us to not be friends and to continue to work together because we have an overarching common goal and purpose.
Got it. And David, I presume you are for single payer?
Yes.
Got it. Great. Blair, welcome to the stream. For those who are seeing you for the first time, you want to give a quick introduction, and then I'm going to give you the next audience question for the panel.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry again for being late to the party, you guys. You'll hear me talk about this on my platform all the time, the rural internet struggles of East Tennessee. So I am Blair Walsingham. I live out in the middle of nowhere in the sticks of the mountainside in the 1st District. I'm running for Congress. I am largely a huge champion of universal basic income. And the reason is I see poverty just crippling my communities all across Tennessee, and every problem that stems from that via no jobs, no education, lack of healthcare, et cetera, all come from just the tip of poverty. So I want to address that as a whole for everybody, improve the quality of life for our entire society to be happy, healthy, and financially secure.
Well, welcome, Blair. First question from the audience we'll start with you, Blair. Do you have a VP pick?
Yeah, Andrew Yang. that seems like I know that if Biden is the nominee, that he was wanting to have a VP as a woman.
Mhm.
And that fact, I would say maybe Evelyn Yang, if he's dead set. I love to have some women, and we have some great women leaders, to be honest. We really do. But at this point in time, I just think Andrew Yang was so right about so many things that we're facing right now. And if we had preemptively taken these actions, we'd be in such a better place. And the route we're going down, we really need his help. And I would love to see him as a VP.
All right. David, what's your VP pick? Oh, you're muted. Let me unmute you. We got you now. Dave, we can hear you now, David.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I don't have a specific pick, but I could share my thoughts.
Sure.
I mean, in regards to the obvious choices would be Bernie or Andrew. I mean, the likelihood of Bernie probably zero, based on how the establishment has set up Biden specifically. They would never want him in that close of a position. So Andrew, yes, but the likelihood of that, we'll see and have to wait and watch, because he does want a female candidate, or he's expressed that. Realistically speaking, I keep on seeing, whether or not you agree with me or not, I'm not saying that I'm for it. I'm still thinking about it, and I can formulate my thoughts, but I probably see Senator Kamala Harris being the VP pick for Joe Biden, to be honest. I mean, yes, there are other great candidate choices out there. I'm not going to argue or debate that, but it seems like she would probably be his pick based on everything else. I could be wrong.
Do I sense hesitation? You don't seem like you're jumping out of your seat to go rah rah.
I don't have anything against Senator Harris. I think she could be stronger in some policy issues, but overall she's great. She could be stronger in some other policy issues, but I think she's great overall person for the people. But I think right now what Biden needs to do is really earn the people's vote and show that he is going to fight for change and not just reform, because the people aren't looking for reform or need reform. They need bigger change. They don't need little fixes here and there. So that's why I'm not, oh, it's going to be Senator Harris. I mean, if she brings that, then yeah, Senator Harris. But I mean, based on what we know, that's just my current thought situation. So I haven't made a pick yet.
Gotcha. Jen, what are your thoughts on this whole VP race?
I'm still referring to Biden as the presumptive nominee, and I'm still sort of holding out hope that a lot can happen between now and November. But if I had to assign somebody to be VP, I'd go with Nina Turner. That would be my pick. The problem I have with Kamala really is in this climate right now with injustice and criminal justice and police brutality. She might not be the best. I mean, really, we found out about Amy Klobuchar's prosecution record, but Kamala's it's not good. Like it doesn't look pretty for her. And so I just think that given the climate right now, that as soon as they pick her, they're going to start harping on her history as a state attorney, and it's pretty ugly. So I'm just, putting that out there.
I have heard that. I have heard discussions of her previous prosecutorial record. Yeah.
Anybody who is looking for a position like that, their prosecutorial record should be gone through with a fine-tooth comb, because it speaks a lot to the integrity of that person. It's everything. So when somebody pays lip service and jokes about how funny it is that they, smoke weed, but that they've prosecuted 1,500 nonviolent drug offenders. It doesn't sit well with some of us.
Yeah. I've heard another name thrown out. Is it Tammy Duckworth?
Yeah.
You guys anybody have any thoughts on her?
She's a veteran. I know that she's a veteran. So that's a good perspective to have for sure.
Yeah.
We're forgetting about Tulsi Gabbard too. I'm a big fan of Tulsi. I think she's fantastic, and if they're looking for a female leader, she would do phenomenal. She has a lot of great new progressive policies. She's really on board to open mind. She's a veteran. She does so much good in her communities now and has a a great track record.
I love Tulsi.
She'd be a great VP.
I love Tulsi, but the establishment
smile, Tom.
I don't know that the sort of traditional the sort of DNC committee is not like a popular lady there.
Yeah. No, she stepped down in 2016 and backed Bernie against Hillary, and that little cat fight's gone pretty deep. I mean, she even just sued Hillary fairly recently.
Yeah, so, I think probably Tulsi and your competitor, Jen, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they probably aren't best buds.
No, and Tulsi, and Tulsi, I have the feeling probably knows so many good things about Debbie just from working with her at the DNC for so long. But no, that's one of the reasons I have so much respect for Tulsi. She had enough integrity. She was the only person in 16 that had the courage of her convictions and stepped down from that nonsense.
All right, let me ask you guys this. Blair, before you joined, David and Jen were making the point that, the Democratic Party is not perfect and that there are corporate sort of influences in both parties. Mm-hmm. And one thing that's been bubbling up on Twitter, at least on my feed, that I've been kind of engaging in the last few days is there's this Darkhorse Duo narrative, right? There's this general feeling that people are not happy with Trump, but they're really not that much more happy with the idea of a Biden presidency. And therefore, we need to break this kind of duopoly and support a ticket that would bring out that a third of the independents and a little edge of each and really kind of shake things up. I'd just be curious if anybody has any thoughts on that movement and that argument. Anybody want to touch that one?
Yeah, sure. So,
all right.
It's something that most of us, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, anybody can pretty much agree on this point is that the two-system cycle is not really working for America right now. We want real options. And a lot of us are big supporters of ranked choice voting so that people don't have that fear of wasting their vote so that they could vote by what they actually believe is moral and just and aligns with what they believe in versus saying, well, I have to vote for the lesser of two, otherwise somebody else might win and my vote is lost and all this nonsense that we have going on. So it actually makes a lot of sense that people are looking for outside the box ways to change the election path.
David or Jen, any thoughts on third parties in the U.S., especially for this cycle? I'm a supporter of the whole concept of third parties, and it's just a matter of how effective can they be given the stronghold that we have with the current system, and that's really the biggest problem. Now, I was somebody who in 2000 I was living in Texas, and so I was in such a red state. I ended up trading my vote. I voted for Nader, and then somebody in a swing state voted for Gore for me. We traded votes because my goal at the time, there was this action to just get 5% for the third party and at least, try to accomplish that. And I voted Green in 2016 as well. So, I am somebody that values that. I would love to see that go further, whether it's Greens or the Democratic Socialists of America, or I think the Greens don't seem to have it together so much. The fact that they turned down Jesse Ventura as a possibility
was kind of a little bit upsetting to me. It would have been like a really good pick. But yeah, no, I support third parties, and I absolutely support ranked choice voting.
David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a question that pops up in our Twitter discussions feeds a lot, that we see other people tweeting or retweeting or commenting about. And so it's definitely a question that we've all answered or thought about. We do acknowledge the fact and can all agree that Trump is a fascist and a very dangerous one at that. And to allow our country to be guided by a little child who is completely unpredictable, acts to his erratic whims, and doesn't know how to communicate either with himself or with a nation or other leaders or people in general, how serious of a reality that is, and something for us not just to skim and gloss over again. And it's not to say that those who have already made their vote to vote for a third party candidate is thinking that. I'm not assuming that at all, but it's also on the flip side for those who are wanting people to vote for the presumptive Democratic nominee, how you can't also assume that these people are not taking that into account, but they're actually thinking about how the corporate establishment Democratic Party has been in luring them every election cycle or midterm cycle on, oh yeah, we'll fight for change, and it just keeps on getting pushed back. And so we're at a time where we have different sides and groups just being split as to, hey, are we going to vote for the presumptive Democratic nominee or are we not? And for me, I don't think any of us are, and this is your own opinion, but for my opinion, I don't think any of us have the position and to say, oh, you should vote for the Democratic nominee or you shouldn't vote for him or her, whoever it ends up being, because your vote is entitled. That's your vote. You get to own that vote. You don't even need to share your vote if you don't want to. But I understand that for candidates and for us, like, we're called to a higher platform, and so I get that. So I'll go share those types of discussions. But your vote is it's personal to you, and so we can engage in these types of discussions and whatnot, but try not to limit yourself from interacting and fully connecting with different groups and people and communities, because that's what shuts us down and makes us the same old type of people that we elect into office. And so it's just being aware of that and kind of thinking, okay, so these are the things that have to happen. How can we be strategic about it, of uniting groups of people nationally and locally so that we can have a say? And I know that the Green Party is moving for their 5% minimum presidential vote campaign, and that's great. But if we're able to be strategic about it and in such a way where we're also not putting our country in jeopardy, then yeah, go for it. And I think this is a time where we can continue to actively engage in discussion about that.
Let me just ask you directly, are any of you planning on voting for someone other than Biden if he's the nominee?
I think it says a lot that none of us want to answer that question.
Oh man! All right, let me play devil's advocate. Let's just stipulate that Joe Biden, he's got a lot of flaws, and he's not my top choice. He wasn't in my top 5. But what we've seen from President Trump with the coronavirus, with the George Floyd, with foreign policy, with just sort of like the polarization of the country, is so toxic that having a kind of milquetoast, transitional President Biden, I don't know. I'm all right with that, because I'm very concerned about another 4 years of Trump and Barr and Jared and DeVos, like this clown show. So for me, I'm like, if I wake up the day after general election and we realize that, wow, some third party got like a meaningful number, but not enough to win, and that's exactly how much Trump won by, it would be really terrifying. Then I haven't mentioned the Supreme Court. So why wouldn't we just say this is a vote for change in the Oval? It's not a vote for the perfect, anything near the perfect candidate, but we just have a ticking time bomb, hanging out in Mar-a-Lago and the White House right now. We need to remove that risk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to
go ahead? Go ahead, Blair.
You're right. And I'm reading through the comments. And the fact is we do. If Biden's the nominee, then we need to back him. There's really no other option. We can't afford to leave Trump in office. The problem is we keep kind of running into this. And a lot of people aren't paying attention to the lower elections because the president is not the be all end all. Everybody who is running like us for state house, for Congress, for your local districts, for your school committees, for everything is people need to pay attention. It's not just the one person, it's all of us. So if we really want to bring change and say we need these progressive ideas to actually push through, we need to do more than just pick the president. So if we can elect some strong leaders into the House and into these other positions, then we're already going to be pushing for change. And we have a long-term goal of saying, this is what we expect out of a presidential Democratic nominee, and make sure that that happens the next time round, to be more vocal and not like present a list of demands. But it's kind of like that. Like, we are the Democrats, we are the people, and this is what we are saying, and it will be heard. And we can do that by electing others into power also.
David and Jen, any other thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I can add. I can add. I mean, it is a question that at least those of us on here have to answer at some point for ourselves personally before we enter before we mail in our ballot or before we go to the booth, whichever it is. Do I see the likelihood and probability of me voting for the presumptive Democratic nominee? Yes. Will I make my decision now? No, because I don't think there's a need at this time, personally, for me to make that haste decision when I need a little bit more for my communities and for the people that I'm fighting for. And if that's what they want, then I'm not making my decision yet. But do I see the probability of me doing that in terms of picking the nominee? I see it. And it's not to completely disregard the narrative around Biden being the transition presidential or president who will take us to the next president who can be a bit more impactful and bring bigger, bolder change. We have representatives like Representative Ro Khanna saying that on his Twitter, acknowledging that, hey, I know that he probably isn't the icon or symbol of change and progress, but he'll help us get there. And we're not ignoring that discussion. We're also listening. It's not like Jen, Blair, and I are completely, we're listening too. And I think it's important for us to make very informed, thoughtful decisions from our own thought processes, from hearing each other, from talking more. And so I actually thank you for asking that, Tom, because it definitely has us thinking in different ways about the question and issue as well.
Great. Well, I know
I would just say one thing, that the difference that you see between Biden and Trump gets smaller and smaller and smaller as you get further and further down into the abyss of where people are. So the lower that people are in our social caste system, the less they can see the difference between those two people. And truthfully, to me, people that are able to even see a distinction are coming from a certain perspective of privilege in the first place, because, and this is something that just from lifelong knowing Joe Biden, we can't even say the Supreme Court. This is the same person who brought us Scalia and Thomas. And so, when we talk about really what the history is, I think we need to look at, this is somebody who fought for segregation. This is somebody who wrote the 93 crime bill that has led to generational rot within like so many communities that it's just outrageous, and still hasn't acknowledged that maybe that wasn't the best move. So this is not just like the lesser of two evils. It really is just a complete corporate show at this point. And I just think that the people closer to the bottom would rather their wolves look like wolves than sheep. And I find that very much so, at least in our more vulnerable communities, when you go into in our Black community, that is our most sort of vulnerable area in my district. And the difference between them about Trump and Joe Biden, they don't know the difference. It doesn't matter to them one way or the other, because their sensibilities aren't offended by Trump like our sensibilities tend to be offended by him. They're worried about how to feed themselves. So they're not worried, oh my God, he tweeted this nasty comment, or oh my God, he's this, or labeling him as that, and whatever. They're just, how am I going to eat tonight? So I just think that where you view them on the spectrum is relative to your position.
That's a great point. Well, thank you, Jen. I know we're a little bit over time, so the last question that I'll have for each of you is basically a little set of questions. Like, first is like, if there's a topic that you didn't have an opportunity to bring up that you wanted to share your thoughts on something, feel free, open floor. Then secondly, if you have any just closing thoughts that you want the audience to hear, or requests for the audience to get involved, feel free to do that. And maybe we'll start with Blair. Blair, what would you like to say to the Nerds for Humanity Nation?
Don't ban me from the show for being late, you guys. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, you're good.
Well, I say this in a lot of interviews lately, and a lot of us are very tense. It's an emotional time, an uncertain time. We're all on edge about a lot of these topics. It's really important, and lives are being lost, and we're getting almost distracted or sucked into some of these nitpicky details. What we need to focus on is solidarity, working together, communication, and going out and being kind and grateful every day, because it is contagious. And the more that you connect with people, the better our future will be in the long run. And it is a lot of work, and it's something that we have to keep fighting for and not let it fall back whatsoever. I am really shocked to see some of these things happening in our current society that were happening 40 years ago, 60 years ago, 100 years ago. We've already been through this, and it's a tipping point. It's a really big paradigm shift that we are about to have. And the more that we keep working for this, we are going to get there. And there is a ton of issues on the plate right now. So stay focused, stay grateful, stay kind, and help everybody who you can, because that is where we need to go with the society. And make sure that your leaders are leading by example by doing this, and not just getting up here and talking about these things. They have to actually go out and do the work. So I would just call on you to be accountable for yourselves, get out there, be active, make sure you're voting, even if you're voting by mail, just make it happen. And I appreciate you guys all for being here. You can go to blairforcongress.com to find more info. There's a volunteer form, a donate form. And as always, I say I hate asking for money. It's the worst part about running a campaign. Absolutely worst. But we have to. That's our current politic setup. And if we want to change that, we have to get into office first, and that requires funds. So if you feel inclined, please check all of us out and donate to who you can, and find local people near you.
Thanks, Blair. David.
Yes, thanks so much for having me, Tom, Nerds for Humanity. I very much enjoyed our conversation and discussion today on a variety of topics. I think what we can all agree is that systemically, a lot of things are going awry. They have been for years. They've been completely ignored. And now's the opportunity and time to be aware of that, to talk about it with other people, to take a proactive role, to convert our hope into expressive activism, organizing and mobilizing with our family, friends, communities, just even where you're at with your own networks, and sharing and talking about it. Because once we're able to do that and connect with the soul of each person in our own groups, then we're able to communicate that message even further, and really connect with a greater humanity. And it's not to throw random cliches or idioms or heart feel good words out there, but to really acknowledge that we all look different. We come from different backgrounds. We come from different life stories. We have different life stories and experiences, but what we can all attest to is Right now, life is hard. It's tough. And we need people fighting for us and representing us. And we need to really be there for each other. So that means being mindful of whether or not I'm being reactive right now in a conversation or being responsive, whether or not I'm contributing to the discussion and moving forward, or whether I'm being divisive. And I think it's these greater human elements that if we're reminded of on a daily basis, just like what Blair emphasized with being kind, sharing that kindness is a contagious thing, and really living that and being human again, that's where we could really bring fundamental change, starting with ourselves, with our families and communities, in addition to the local activism and organizing that we need to do. So for those of you who are watching, if this sparks you to go start a website, start a blog, or go message Tom and say, hey, Tom, how do I become a podcast host or whatnot? Go do that. Go be proactive. Go volunteer for a campaign if you want to. Ours is davidkim2020.com. I'm doing the plug. We need volunteers. We need donations, but first focus on Jen's campaign. It's coming up. Her election's coming up. Focus on hers first. We really need her to win her race. So focus on her. Go to her website before you go to ours, because we have the general in front of us. So please support Jen, and Jen will share.
The floor is yours, Jen.
Hi. So thank you so much for that and recognizing that we still have our August primary. So our primary is August 18th. We need everybody to be registered as a Democrat by July 18th, and it's very easy to do. We even have a link on our website at gen2020.com, which is also where you could sign up to help us out with phone banking. We definitely do need money, but we need people spreading the word. We need people on social media, and it isn't just so much about my campaign as it is about the message in general. And this is something that Blair and David had touched on, is that this is a collective movement. This is about people that see representation as a term of service and not a career. This is about people that think that there are some things that are more important that profit. And so we're willing to do this as a public service, as something that we're trying something new. We're going to try to pull the money out of the system and just actually go back to serving people. And so I think that speaks to everyone, regardless of whether you consider yourself left, right, Democrat, Republican, libertarian, whatever. And I want to encourage people to just let go of the labels and let go of the sort of rhetoric and just look at what are your values? What are your values? Do you believe that we could be better than we are? Do you believe that everybody is entitled to a life of dignity and respect? Do you think that the least among us should at least have food and shelter and education and a job? Do you think that working people should be able to work a 40-hour work week and be able to live? Do you think that people should be able to have insurance or healthcare regardless of if they even have a job that gives it to them? We are stifling our citizenry by having healthcare linked to employment. So it's like, if these are things that resonate with you and you would like to see this kind of change, or you are inspired, find your local person. There are progressives all over, people that, or whatever their label is, people that are working to change this to service, because that's what this is really all about. I mean, this shouldn't even be a paid job. And it's become this sort of pedestal of leadership. This is not the House of Leaders. It's the House of Representatives. Those are your employees. And if they're not doing what you want them to do, then they're insubordinate. So we need to just be louder than them. And I would really appreciate people to just recognize this and get out there and fight for people and not just the establishment.
Right on.
That was a great quote. They're your employees.
They are insubordinate employees.
Yes. Insubordinate employees. That's totally the truth.
Jen does not mess around. She does not mess around.
I'm too old.
She's too tired of this shit.
You've been doing this for 10 years, David. Welcome to the party, pal. It's been I've been doing this for 30-something, a really long time.
Well, hopefully all four of you will get there and shake things up and knock over some furniture, because I hope it's not business as usual when you guys get over there. But I really want to thank you all for spending time with us and with the nerd community out there. For those of you on the live stream, there's about 100 concurrents at the moment. Don't forget to like and share this video so more people can discover Jen, Blair, David, and Donna earlier. And we will continue to watch all of your campaigns and support you with great interest. With that, I'm going to say bye, nerds.
Bye, nerds.
Bye, nerds.
Bye, nerds.
Oh, got the hand gesture as well. I love it. All right. See you guys later. Peace.
Bye.